Hello, shalom, and welcome to the fourth episode of Homiltea. I am your host, Sean,
And I'm Blake.
and we are here to bring you the fourth episode of Homiltea on the fourth Sunday of Advent. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? You have a double feature today. It is a double day of obligation. If you didn't know already, now you do. So thank you for listening on this wonderful Sunday. And if you're listening on Monday, well, you missed out. Hopefully you didn't, but hopefully you knew ahead of time. What I mean by a double day of obligation, obviously the fourth Sunday of Advent is a day of obligation, but also Christmas Eve, Christmas Day kind of intertwines each other, is a holy day of obligation for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So we have a big episode here, and then we have a long discussion, very controversial discussion. You thought last episode was controversial. This one probably may be the biggest controversy when it comes to the church as a
Yes.
whole. So hopefully episode 5 will be a more joyful and historical episode so we can bring it all back and unite as one. Um, all I ask though is before this episode gets started, please do not be mean to each other in the comments. Please have like educational discussions and conversations. Don't target one religion or don't target one belief. I ask that you guys be very, very respectful. And throughout this controversial talk, Blake and I will be controversial, but we will also respect others in what they believe. Because as traditional Catholics, Blake and I have our ways. However, we do live in the 21st century. We know we don't live in the 18th century. However, we do have our ideals, and we ask that you respect them. So we're going to go ahead and get into the readings. Like I said, we have a dual feature, so the readings are going to be a little bit longer. So I will go ahead and kick it off with the fourth Sunday of Advent. The first reading comes from the second book of Samuel, where it talks about David, full of goodwill, wants to build a temple for God. But instead of David building a temple for God, God will build a house, an everlasting dynasty for David. Your house shall endure forever. In kingship of the Lord Jesus. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I skip something? In today's gospel, Luke sees this promise ultimately fulfilled in the universal kingship of Lord Jesus. With this in mind, we should make the responsorial psalm our prayer of praise and thanksgiving for what God gave in Jesus Christ. So what he's talking about is building the house, building the kingdom. He's building the kingdom of heaven. He is building. He's prophesizing to David what is to come, which is basically what all Advent is about: is rejoice in what is coming, and that is the birth of Jesus Christ. And without Jesus Christ, we would not be able to enter the kingdom of heaven. However, he's also talking about a house, a temple, which is prophesizing also the church, as we know it, as a more concrete figure on earth.
Brick and
Um,
mortar. Yeah.
Brick and mortar. And then it's if you want to even go even further, it's prophesizing Peter as the Pope, as literally the rock of the church, where Jesus will form his foundation on top of the rock, on top of Peter, for his church to live ever after. And this is crazy that we're even talking about this in what we're about to discuss. The importance of keeping the rock a strong foundation. But like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So take it away, Blake.
So, building off of that, responsorial psalm for the fourth Sunday of Advent is going to be Psalm 89, and it reflects on the eternal covenant. So, just to kind of give you a little background on this, so for the main part for Psalm 89, it's forever I will sing the goodness of the Lord. And really, the one thing that pops out to me when I'm reading this psalm or responsorial psalm for Sunday, really it's the first line. The promises of the Lord I will sing forever. Through all generations, my mouth shall proclaim your faithfulness. For you have said, my kindness is established forever. So, through all generations, my mouth shall proclaim your faithfulness. So, throughout history, throughout times, and really, I guess, like an overview, like not just in a Catholic perspective, um, but people tell stories, through generations, and there are traditions that are passed down through generations. Well, that's what the Catholic Church is. It is sacred scripture that has been handed down through generations, and also sacred tradition. Those are the two main things that we build upon in our faith. Um, so, really, just this psalm right here is prophesizing the church after Jesus. So, proclaiming your faithfulness after generations. So, just, keeping that straight line, referring to apostolic succession from Peter all the way to Pope Francis. There is a line of that. So, going through each generation, always keep the line going. Um, yes, there are pitfalls along the way, but just making sure that we always have our eyes on the prize.
Absolutely. So I'll go
Second
ahead
reading,
and
yeah.
jump into the second reading. This is a letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Let me just start out by saying if you ever receive a letter from Paul, you might want to think twice.
Yeah.
It's not a good one. It basically says, only with the coming of Jesus Christ do we attain the right understanding of Israel's expectations. The mystery hidden for many ages is now revealed and made known to all the Gentiles. Salvation coming to us through Jesus Christ is for all. We should pray that all may see the real light of Christmas. And that again is going to touch on what we're about to talk about. However, I watched I think it was like a 2006 film this past weekend. It's called The Life of Jesus. It has a ton of British actors in it. It's kind of like your generic Christian movie, but it was really good considering it was like 3 hours long. But in many ways, it was eye-opening to me because it was very scripturally accurate, and we'll talk about this in another episode. But what I'm trying to get at is there was many people, random citizens, the Pharisees. You hear it all the time in the Bible about just people just coming up to him and just asking him questions of why. Why are you talking to these people? Why are you talking to the Gentiles? Why aren't you fighting the Romans? Why aren't you presenting us an army? Why aren't you smiting down our enemies? And what Jesus was coming at is how far the Jews of that time, the people at the time in general, have strayed away from the path that God had laid out for him through Moses, through Abraham, through David, through Isaiah. There are so many things to take away from it. And it's a question that I ask myself a lot, is that if Christ were to come today, would I be able to recognize him through that? Because everyone was waiting for the Messiah, but yet when he showed up to them, they did not want him. Right? So only with the coming of Jesus Christ do we attain the right understanding of Israel's expectations. We understand it now. We understand it 2,000 years later. But who is not to say that many of these expectations are being kept in the church as a whole? So, Blake, take it away with the gospel.
Taking home fourth Sunday of Advent on this gospel. We're reading from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38. So if you want to read this on your own, this is a really good snippet right here that they've taken specifically for the fourth Sunday of Advent, right before Christmas. Essentially, what this is basically talking about Mary's consent from the angel Gabriel. And what a better time to read this the day before Christmas. and
What?
really on Christmas Eve at that. Um, but yeah, this basically just talks about how um, Gabriel was sent down from heaven to appear to Mary, um, and said, "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you." And now those words may sound familiar to you because whenever we pray the Hail Mary, those are the words that we say: "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you." Um, Literally taken from Scripture. So, um, yeah, I mean, this is just basically saying how she is going to bear the Son of God. Mary was born without original sin, because God needed a pure vessel. Like, we couldn't have put little baby Jesus in any person
Nope.
and, born with original sin, because it would have made everything, um,
Pointless.
not, yeah,
Yeah.
it would have been pointless.
No.
It wouldn't have been true. Um, but having the Son of God in a pure vessel, such as Mary, um, it allowed us to have Jesus walk this earth and, um, start his church, start his following. And that goes into why we have such a profound respect for Mary and for what, she did, saying her yes to the angel Gabriel, her consent. And, this is why we have a lot of devotionals to Mary, consecrations to Mary, because it, if God just came down to you and was like, "Hey, like, I want you to do this," like, you would say yes, you know, really, I would hope you would say yes. But like, that's a very hard yes to say. So that is why we have profound respect for Mary. We love her very much and we respect her. Um, we do not worship her. Let me make that clear because
Yep.
that is a common misconception.
I know you keyboard warriors are waiting for him
Oh
to
yeah,
not say that
they're
and slip up
they're
on
gonna
that.
tear me apart in the comments, but we do not worship Mary. We ask for her intercession, and if you're looking to maybe um, increase your faith and want to get better and more well rounded, pray the Rosary. Pray the morning offering prayer. Um, that is a really interesting prayer to read because you're basically saying your morning prayers. If you say morning prayers, just whatever it is, um, but you're asking for the intercession of Mary, and essentially you're putting your prayers on this nice silver platter and giving it to Mary, and then Mary's taking it and giving it to God. That is like awesome. So, if you're looking to change it up in the mornings, I would definitely recommend the morning offering prayer. Um, it's just a really, really good prayer to say, especially if you're trying to strengthen your faith life. But that is for the fourth Sunday of Advent. Now it's Christmas time, ready to get baby Jesus born into the world and prepare for the second coming. And that's what
Santa's
Advent's all
coming.
about.
Santa's
Santa
coming.
Claus is coming to town.
He's coming. All right. So for the first reading, is from the book of Genesis, from the very
Bring it
beginning.
back.
Yeah,
Wow.
talking about
Bring it back.
Abraham's faith. Abraham put his faith in the Lord, who credited to him as an act of righteousness. Abraham renounced all certainty that can come from human beings, and as a result, in old, he and his wife had a son, Isaac. Though that act, God reveals love and faithfulness. Hence, the family becomes the sign of the faith of human beings and the love of God. What a statement to be said with people nowadays. I mean, unfortunately, you look at it nowadays, 50% of marriages in the United States and from the United States alone experience divorce.
High numbers, man.
Plenty of families in the United States do not have or only have one parent, and it's not by the death of one parent, is more by the separation or the one parent not stepping up to their obligations. It is important to understand that in order to have a great society, to have a great country, to have a great anything, it all starts at home. It all starts with, two parents and them working together to, for the betterment of the child. Um, no matter if you are divorced or not, if you guys have a child or not, if you do have a child, then you need to put your differences aside to better that child's future instead of raising them the wrong way and continuing the cycle of, well, I'll just let somebody else do it. I'll just let somebody else take care of it. And that's what, unfortunately, we're dealing with a lot today. It all starts at home. Abraham's here. He's at the old age, and he has a son named Isaac.
That man's old.
Abraham was
Abraham's
very, very old.
old.
Um,
A quick stat for you. According to the American Psychological Association, didn't know that was a thing. Approximately 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce. And then the divorce rate for the second marriage is 60 to 67%.
so it doesn't get better.
It just goes up from there.
Yeah.
So if you can't get it right the first time, you ain't gonna get it right the second time.
And yeah, that's a whole point too of Advent and Christmas in general. Not only for the birth of Jesus Christ, but for the understanding of how a family in faith is supposed to work. I've been seeing a lot on my social media recently, and probably for good reason because it is in Advent, because it is a reoccurring theme. But many people in faith talk about the best relationship is a relationship of three. And people are like, well, what do you mean? Isn't it just supposed to be between a man and a woman and that's it? Well, that's true. But the third is God. The third is faith. The third is Jesus Christ. It's the Holy Triune, right? It is something that can be therapeutic. It can be something that can answer some of your problems and get you through some of those problems. The Bible is the only book on the world that has every answer. All you have to do is open it up and read it instead of picking apart stuff on the internet and antagonizing it. And I think that just goes without saying that, when you put your faith in God, your life can be so much better. And you look at people who go to church, you look at people who put faith in God, you look at people who accept this third party in a relationship, they look so much happier than people who kind of just bully each other in a relationship. And that's just from personal observation. So, Bleak, if you take it away with the next part of the Christmas celebration.
Yeah, so on Christmas we're going back to the covenant. So reading from Psalm 105. So in case you didn't know, the first covenant was given on Mount Sinai. The covenant that God gave at Mount Sinai reinforced the covenant that God had given to Abraham. So, Old Testament, God and Abraham had a covenant, and then it was reinforced on Mount Sinai with Moses. Now, from reading this psalm, the Lord remembers his covenant. He don't forget. He's going to remember it. Now, that was the first covenant in the Old Testament. What is the second covenant? Well, according to the Catholic Church, the second covenant is the Eucharist. Now, let me just verify this. But, let's see. I'm going to fact check myself before the keyboard warriors do.
Man, they've been hot lately.
Hey, they've been hot. So, the Eucharist that we eat and consume, we believe is the actual body of Christ. That is the covenant. That is the second covenant. Jesus came to earth to give us that. He said it at the Last Supper, to do this in memory of me. He's literally telling us to do it. He's commanding us to do it. He's giving us the authority to do it in remembrance of him.
In literal
Um,
words, not metaphorical.
yeah, not metaphorically, not interpretation of what he was saying.
No
He said it,
parables.
yeah, no parables. He wasn't telling a story. He was commanding them to do it. And which is why we do it every Sunday or every time you go to mass. It's every single time because that is the second covenant. Um, the cool thing about, I guess, having the Eucharist and being Catholic is, if you're ever struggling with anything, just go to adoration. You can be in the physical presence of Jesus.
You don't even have to say anything. You
No,
can just
you
sit
can
there.
just sit there. You can just sit there.
And you can leave whenever you want. There
Yeah,
is no like, oh yeah, you have to sit here for an hour and 15 minutes because you haven't been here in a year or two. It's like
yeah,
you can just sit there, silence for as long as you want, get up and leave whenever you're ready. But
yeah.
there's so much peace with adoration.
It's it's a it's a it's a powerful experience once you really understand um, how adoration works, because it can really change you. You can go to adoration once and you can walk out with a different perspective on everything just by sitting in the physical presence. Um, so that I challenge that to everyone to just go to adoration with 15, 20 minutes a week. Like it can be the smallest time that you can commit, but it's at least taking that step towards, greatness. So that's kind of my little thought process on Psalm 105 is talking about the covenant. So if you want to take it away to the second reading.
Of course, but before that, I will say I saw something from Mark Wahlberg, who's a huge Catholic. Um, and if you won't take it
Big
from
Catholic
Blake, take
guy.
it from Mark. Um, he goes to church every single day.
He
However,
goes to daily mass. Wow.
not daily mass though. He goes to church every single day. He
Oh,
says
church every day. Okay.
even if he just sits there for 15 and 20 minutes just sitting in church, doesn't even have to be in adoration. He just gets his mindset right for the entire day. He blocks out the impurities. He blocks out the temptations. All he does is just sit there in 15 to 20 minutes in the presence of God, no matter if it's adoration or not, and just clears his mind for the day just to get it right. So if you don't take it from Blake, take it from Mark. All you need to do, and you don't even need to go to church. You can put in your earbuds, listen to Hallow. You can listen to this podcast. You don't even have to listen to this podcast. You can just sit and just be silent and just think about God. It's just a beautiful thing. But on to the second reading. The second reading is a letter to the Hebrews. The author of Hebrews here extols Abraham's faith, which occupies a prominent place in the history of salvation, for Abraham believed God's promises and put his faith in him, living that faith in every phase of his life. And since God is faithful to his promises, faith becomes the source of hope and happiness for his family. We should place our trust in God's promises. Like I said before, like I just said, the easiest way, while also being the hardest way to live a happy life, is to surrender yourself to Christ. It doesn't matter what denomination you are, as long as you give yourself to God and just say, hey, look, I had plans for X, Y, and Z, and they didn't turn out. Here you go. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you it all, and it's up to you what goes on from here. And I think that's very, very powerful to say, pre 2,000 years ago. Like, this is like 2,500 years ago, where it is still the topic of the day, where it is important to have Christ in the family, Christ in your life in order to be happy, to be fulfilled. Those who seek me will never thirst or hunger again. And if you, I literally have that quote that verse on repeat in my head every single day, because sometimes the temptations get the best of me, and before I commit a sin or think about committing a sin, I always think about Jesus saying, those who come and search and seek for me will never thirst and hunger again. And that if you are taking in how I'm taking it, as I don't need anything of this world, I need something of Christ. And when you need something of Christ in your family, it makes everything just so much easier and so much more meaningful, so much more worth living and getting through whatever struggles you have. So, Blake, go ahead and finish up with the gospel, and then we'll jump into the main topic.
So for the gospel for this beautiful Christmas, again, reading from Luke, chapter 2. There's an or, so you could read 22 or verses 22 through 40, or chapter 2, verse 22, 39 through 40. So um, the interesting thing about readings is sometimes there's like a little bit of extras that sometimes the priest may read. He may not read it. Just depends on what church you go to. But from our little synopsis and our missals, so Luke describes the Jewish purification rite observed by the Holy Family as a manifestation of our Lord. He is introduced as the Christ of the Lord. He anointed the anointed king or Messiah, who meets two representatives of his people, Simeon and Anna. He took them into his arms. This was the customary ritual of blessing children. So basically, Jesus was born, and the blessing of the children in the Jewish times, you were to give them to two representatives of his people. So, two Jews that Mary and Joseph knew, like those were his people. So yeah, they would give the baby to the people, and then that's how the ritual began. They would bless the child. So basically, kind of the way that this expands into next Sunday, kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself, but this is basically accepting the baby, into into their society, and not only in their society but in the Jewish faith. They're being blessed. Well, how do we enter the church today? Through baptism. That is the first thing you do in order to become a Catholic. You have to be baptized. So kind of foreshadowing next Sunday, we'll be talking about baptism again. So just some cool things. I mean, it's always cool to see the connections every Sunday with different readings. And so next Sunday would be the Epiphany of the Lord, and that's the baptism of the Lord. So also throwing it out there, not sure when the next one's coming out, but New Year's Day is a holy day of obligation.
Yes.
FYI.
Yep.
So getting that out there early so that you can prepare yourself. And then if you're late today, then that's on you.
Yep. For those of you guys watching that didn't know that this was a double whammy of an obligation for the Catholic Church, here is your warning, that January 1st, I repeat, January 1st, it is a day of obligation. Be there, be there, be there. All right. Jumping in. Okay. Like I said, this is a very, very powerful episode. This is a very, very controversial episode. And I want you to respect Blake and I. And we're going to respect you in the best way possible, while also getting our opinions across. At the time of this recording is December 18th, when everything about Pope Francis is coming out about the same-sex marriage comments. So, title of this episode is Pope Francis the Antipope. And I'm going to get it out right now. I don't think he is. However, what he's doing right now is not very traditional Catholic. So we're going to jump into it. I got this source that kind of picked it apart. It's from Catholic Connect on Instagram. If you guys don't follow Catholic Connect, go ahead and go follow them. They are a great page for sources of information. And it says Pope Francis and the Vatican are not endorsing same-sex marriage. Okay, because there's a lot of news coverings that are coming out saying that he is, and there's a lot of confusion going on. And that's why Blake and I are having this podcast. We were originally going to talk about a completely different topic, but this is such a huge thing of information. I don't even know what to call it. That is hitting us right in the face today. So, it just happened to be the day that we were recording, and we're like, yeah, fine, let's talk about it because we need to talk about it. And it's Christmas, so here's your present.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So it breaks it down. It says the Vatican's new guidance on the blessings of same-sex couples does not change the Church's teachings.
So we're not changing our stance. We still condone same-sex marriages.
Same-sex marriages.
As the Catholic Church, we do not endorse that.
Priests can offer blessings as a sign of pastoral care, not as an approval of same-sex unions. These blessings are informal and not part of an official church ceremony. The move is to show compassion while upholding the Church's stance on marriage. And Pope Francis reviewed the document, ensuring it aligns with traditional church beliefs. Well, I mean, we can differ on that, but, who cares? The thing is, this teaching has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Everyone's freaking out about it.
It came to light.
It has been going on for years. The thing about the Catholic Church is that we respect everybody, but we uphold our own teachings, and we don't intertwine them, okay? If you come up to us and you say, oh, I'm a Satanist, oh, I'm an atheist, oh, I have, I'm in a polygamy relationship with 7 other men, and I'm a homosexual. What are we going to say? Well, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you. We've always prayed for people of same-sex marriages. Let me just get this out of the way. We've always prayed for people of same-sex marriages. Blake and I have gay friends that we love dear to our hearts, and we want them to be happy. Period. We want them to live their life as beautifully as possible. And if you want to be gay, that's fine. Go ahead and do you, okay? We are not saying that Catholics want to condemn people, want to send people to conversion therapy, want to do any of that. That is wrong, okay? Yeah. People should not force you to do anything. People shouldn't convert you to a religion. People shouldn't convert you into what you want to be. People don't want to convert you on who you love. Who you love is who you love. However, we do have our beliefs, and we stay by them, but we've done this for years and years and years, that we have prayed for people. It is just now becoming a thing of publicly, but not really publicly blessing same-sex marriages. As I just said, it's not a public ceremony, but we are announcing that if you are a gay couple and you claim to be Catholic or you want to be Catholic, we will pray for you. However, we still can't allow you in because of our teachings, because of what it says in the Bible, that homosexuality and all of that is an abomination in God's eye. Again, we've been doing this for years. It is just a crazy news title, okay? And it is something that really Pope Francis didn't need to say, but I guess he felt like he needed to say for whatever reason. Again, we've been doing this for years and years and years. And, some people might be like, oh, well, there's gay priests and everything. Well, the thing is, they shouldn't really be priests. And if you were like, oh, well, what do you mean about heterosexual priests? Well, they shouldn't be priests either. Because priests in a sense, shouldn't marry in general, shouldn't have these temptations against their celibate nature in general. And it goes both ways. It doesn't matter if they're gay or they're straight. They give their life. They are married to Christ. They are married to God. They are married to the church. There is no, if, ands, or buts about it. There's no middle ground in there. So that's what I got to
Yeah.
say. That's from the bullet points. Again, not condemning any gay people and not really condemning the Pope. I just don't
No.
really see why he needed to say it, because we've always kind of done it. We've always kind of just prayed for people. But
It's a lot to unpack, dude.
and again, we're in a climate nowadays where it's very volatile, that if you screw up a news title or say anything just out of ordinary, it is going to be blown up on the internet, and people are going to take it out of proportion without doing research on the topic.
Yeah. Um, I mean, this is a heavy blow today, coming out. I mean, kind of like we said in our first podcast, man, people do not like Catholics today.
Period.
And this is another thing that is going to be held over us. And it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard. I guess my views on it, the way that I view sin. So every mortal sin is the same. It no There's no sin greater than another. Um,
Right.
if I it, if you have someone in a gay relationship and they go to the store and steal something, I don't know. That's a sin. You're stealing something. That's not right. Um, but just because they're in a gay relationship doesn't mean that that sin is greater than him going to the store and stealing something.
Right.
Every sin is the same because it's an offense against God. And as we do sin, we do become attached to those sins, and we have to get those off of our soul. So, ergo, confession. Um, that's my confession. What do you call it? Promotion, right there. But the another thing about the Catholic Church is we have the sacraments. Now, if you don't know what the sacraments are, there's 7 sacraments that we have in the church, and those are the sacraments are physical representations of God's grace. So, and it's terrible that I don't know them off the top of my head, but I will pull them up just so that you can know.
Baptism,
Baptism,
reconciliation,
reconciliation,
confirmation,
confession, confirmation, anointing of the sick, um,
marriage,
marriage, holy
or
orders.
holy orders.
Yeah. So,
Now there's 7, but people really do 6, because you have to either choose between marriage or holy orders, which is what I was just
yeah,
saying. Whenever you go down the path of holy orders, you give up all that temptation, or you try your best to give up all that temptation. Like I said, it doesn't matter if you're a homosexual or a heterosexual priest. If you think in that way, that some person in front of you is attractive, you shouldn't be a priest in general. But continue, Blake.
yeah. Um, so, like I said, the sacraments are a beautiful thing that we have in our faith, that no one else has. Only Catholics have this, unless there's like another Catholic denomination out there that we don't know about and they have this. I don't know, whatever. That's another topic. But marriage is a beautiful sacrament that we have in the church. And the fact that Pope Francis is going to go out and say that he's going to bless same sex couples, you are directly eroding the sacrament of marriage. I'm sorry. That is not okay. Like that, there's no need for him to say that because we were already doing it in the first place, praying for those same sex couples. Now, we weren't going out and blessing them here and there, but the fact that we're allowing this to happen now, you are basically destroying the sacrament of marriage and making it nothing because you want to conform with the times of society and become more inclusive, and that's fine. We want to be inclusive. We are the universal church. That's what Catholic means. We are the universal church. But it is through the power of prayer that we should be doing this. We should not be holding secret ceremonies in a church in front of the tabernacle and the priest giving their blessing over people that are in a same-sex marriage. Now, he's not blessing the union like that. They're not doing that. They're just
It is like a
blessing the
formal
people
way of
in
praying.
it. Yeah, it's a form of prayer essentially. But if you think about it, it's going to be perceived as people getting a blessing for their same-sex marriage,
Right.
and it's scary. It's very scary. This is a time that we need to stand up in our faith and defend the faith, because every day it's going to get harder and harder to be a Catholic, because more and more people want to put their personal beliefs over what God wants. And
Absolutely.
that is not okay.
So I want to clear up because I hear the keyboard warriors typing. When I say a
They're typing
heterosexual,
loud.
they're typing loud. Look, I read all the comments, okay, and for the most part, it's pretty good. Okay, it's pretty positive. There's a few that are like, oh, I'm an atheist and God doesn't love me. It's like, well, first of all, you don't proclaim, but that's another topic. Anyways, when I say heterosexual priest, I mean someone who finds a woman attractive. Okay? I do not mean someone who sees the union between a marriage between should be a man and a woman. That in the Catholic teaching is a principle that we all hold. Okay? So for me to say something like that would be completely blasphemous. What I mean by heterosexual is somebody who finds another woman in their congregation or in general extremely attractive enough that they want to go and pretty much have sex with them. That's what I mean. But Blake is saying it right. I'm going to move into the next topic of Pope Francis and his doings at the Synod. If you don't know what the Synod
The Synod.
is a it's like a huge convention that the Vatican holds. I don't even, is it every year? Or
I think it's every year.
if not,
No,
anyways, it's a bunch of cardinals and bishops and even some archbishops, I believe, meeting there in the
it's a
Vatican.
3-year process, by the way.
Is a 3-year process?
Yeah,
Okay. Well,
it's a 2021 to 2024.
okay.
We're
Well,
in a synod right now.
we are in a synod right now. And what usually happens is each continent kind of comes up with like a list of topics to talk about, right? They come out with a list of topics that they want to discuss with the Pope, that they want to discuss about the Catholic Church. And what really came up to me was alarming was the fact that on every single letter was about women ordainment. And it wasn't, that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years that, we saw it fit that only men could be priests. And now it is coming to the point of every single continent was kind of okay with it. There wasn't a serious negative view. It was a more, maybe they can have the same rights as priests, or maybe they can have this, a few less ceremonial privileges as male priests or whatever. But it was never a sense that it was a negative and that it is blasphemy and that it's disgusting. Well, I wouldn't say disgusting, but it's just not following the ways of the church, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think about, well, how can we progress the um, population of the Catholic Church, because more and more that days that go by, more and more people are leaving, um, and it's for stuff like this. Honestly, people think that
Yeah.
it's helping, but the true Catholics, the traditional Catholics, and some even moderate Catholics are leaving because of stuff that's being said like this, where it's women ordainment. And this is not like a feminist thing that I'm going on about. It is like I said, we are not here to target anybody or any demographic. It is a sense of respecting our religion and respecting who we are. Let's put it this way. You would not dare try and be a female rabbi. You would not dare try and be a female who is, entering a mosque without the proper garments, right? Just the same as you wouldn't be a proper Catholic following the correct teachings from the correct teacher. I even walked in on a church a couple months ago. I hadn't gone in a long time, and I went with Blake, and there was a female altar server. She was very, very old, and I even asked Blake, I was like, Blake, is she a deacon? Because she was dressed like a deacon. And he goes, no. You can be an altar server and a woman. But that was like growing up, that was not a thing. It's literally called altar boys. Okay.
Yeah, they changed it to altar server to be more inclusive.
Right, exactly. So you're stepping into a climate in the world where it's very, very progressive all over the place, and the fact that I have to keep reiterating on this podcast so it does not get taken down by YouTube, that we are not targeting people, we are not trying to hurt people's feelings. We are just proclaiming what we believe in and why we believe that this topic needs to be discussed on the podcast, because we are in trying times right now where if someone of a higher power doesn't like what you have to say, you can get deleted like that off the internet. And Blake and I's faith has only grown stronger since we started this podcast. I can tell you that by a mile. So for stuff like this to keep coming up, is very concerning to us. And we believe in the traditional ways of the Catholic Church. We believe in the traditional ways of, St. Peter and what he started whenever, he was, I wouldn't say done following Christ, but whenever Christ left the world and left him in charge of the church. We believe in those same teachings. And those teachings are being set upon mainly by Pope Francis. But when I say I don't really believe that Pope Francis is the Antipope, I believe that a lot of his clergy behind him is
influencing him.
Exactly. And it's not all his fault, because he does not have supreme power over that. But it is alarming to know how many clergymen that we do support on a local level actually believe that this stuff is okay.
Yeah. I was trying to find some information on the female altar servers. So, and it kind of leads into the women priest ordination. So Jesus chose his apostles as all men. So that's how we got the teaching of only priests and deacons can be men. So in regards to women serving as altar servers, it is allowed in the U.S. except for 2 dioceses. I can't find which 2 dioceses it is, because they only allow boys to be altar boys. There's a long doctrine that came out in the 90s. It was 2 different ones that came out, and it basically kind of reiterated everything, but it basically, this letter explains that bishops may allow female altar servers, but are not obligated to do so based on their pastoral assessment of their respective dioceses. It also explains that the laity do not have a right to serve at liturgical services, but are given temporary deputation to carry out such services. So, I guess in certain situations, if I guess what that says is like if they need someone and it is a female, that's fine. And and I nothing against female altar servers because I was an altar server growing up, and it was 50-50 that we had about 20-30 of us. We had a lot of us at the time, and half of us were boys and half of us were girls. At the time growing up, I didn't see any difference. Like, whatever. Like, you're a girl, you're altar serving, cool. Like, it was cool because, like, altar serving back then as a kid, like, you're in, like, this cool club and, like, you thought you were all cool, leaving class early to go to church and set up and all that. Like, it was cool. I guess now as I've gotten older and seeing like all the different perspectives of everything, because we sometimes go to Latin Mass, and in Latin Mass there are no female servers. It is not allowed. It
Not
is
allowed.
only male servers in the traditional Latin Mass. So I would I guess kind of going into the next topic
Yeah.
about
Go ahead.
TLM.
Yeah.
Uh, in case you've never been to a Latin Mass, go to one because it is very interesting. Um, the traditional Latin Mass was the Mass that we had in the church for over 2,000 years. That was the Mass. Vatican II comes around, some changes happen. Now we have Novus Ordo. Novus Ordo is the Mass that we celebrate today. Um, it is said in the vernacular language, which the vernacular language is known as the language of the people of wherever you are. So if you're going to Mass in America, the Mass is said in English. If you are in Brazil or Spain, it's going to be said in Spanish or Portuguese. If you go in Italy, it's going to be said in Italian. So that's what vernacular means in the vernacular language. Well, TLM, everything is in Latin. The
Universal.
reason why it is in Latin is because at the time, and well, people today say that Latin is a dying language, which could be, yeah. I mean, no one really speaks Latin anymore,
Yeah,
just
you don't walk around the
straight up.
street and just start saying
Yeah.
Orimus or,
Oremus.
Deus ubiquus. You don't
Yeah.
really say
No.
stuff. Okay.
No. Well, the reason why Latin Mass was a thing is because the Catholic Church is known as the Universal Church. Latin is known as the universal language. So it didn't matter what Mass you went to pre Vatican II, um, it was all the same. It's the same language. The only thing that was said vernacular, I believe, is the homily, um, which obviously, yes, you would want the homily to be said in the vernacular tongue, but the entire Mass is in Latin. So there's a really good guy on YouTube that talks about the Latin Mass. If you don't know who he is, Dr. Taylor Marshall. He is probably one of the most viewed Catholic YouTubers um, on YouTube, and he puts out a lot of great content. If you're looking to understand a little bit more about like where me and Sean come from when it comes to our beliefs in the Catholic faith, um, there was a video that I watched, and he literally explains like top 10 differences between TLM and Novus Ordo. Um, and it's a really, really cool video. So I highly recommend that video. And he has a lot of other cool stuff on there too. If you're looking to kind of get a new perspective on your faith, and you know, really, really cool stuff. I'm pretty sure he's also a convert. I think he was a Protestant and he became Catholic. So highly recommend watching him. So go to TLM. It's worth
TLM.
it.
And the reason why we keep preaching about TLM is because Pope Francis really wants to do away with TLM. For whatever
Yes.
reason, he just doesn't see it fit. I think it's also probably the same reason that Blake talked about it being a dying language, which is actually pretty ironic considering Latin is the only way for everyone in the Vatican to talk to each other. Whenever they have these synods and whatever, there are people from Uganda, there are people from Japan, there are people from
Speaking in Latin.
Brazil, and they have to. That's the only way they can get stuff
Wow.
done and talk to each other.
Interesting.
That is the universal language,
I
or
was
that is
thinking about
the
that. Like, do they have like the little translator in the ear, like in the
no, dude.
UN or
There is
something like
no
that?
translator like that. They have to
They all
talk to
speak
each other.
Latin.
They have to,
Wow.
and that is the only way they get their voting done and discussions done and the synod done is through Latin. And it's very, very ironic for the Pope to want to get rid of TLM when, like I said, that's like their universal language over there.
Now, now, don't get me wrong. Novus Ordo is a valid mass
Yes,
because it, and you can go to a beautiful Novus Ordo mass. I've been to them. They are phenomenal. But once you go to a Latin mass and then compare it to today's mass, it's a night and day difference. There's just so much more significance in the Latin Mass, and there's so much more small details that are not in the Novus Ordo. There's some things that we still do in Novus Ordo that are taken from the Latin Mass because the Mass itself is the same. It's just changed a little bit,
it's
but
just translated differently.
yeah, you can definitely find a church that does a very well Novus Ordo Mass.
Yeah,
So, and that's also what our missals are. They're in Novus Ordo because I contemplated getting a Latin one, but I'm like, when am I ever going to go to Latin Mass every Sunday? I
plus when
have
you
to
go to
drive an
Latin
hour.
Mass, they already give you the translation book,
Yeah.
so you don't really need to get a missal. They already have it for you, which is also another welcoming part of going to Latin Mass. And Blake and I have decided to go to Latin Mass at least once a month just to respect the traditionality of the Catholic Church. But
Yes.
there was during the synod, Pope Francis removed a Texas bishop from office, Bishop Strickland of Tyler, Texas, who clashed with the Pope on social and theological issues. He was dismissed after a formal investigation into his leadership. Basically, he is a huge traditional Latin Mass guy, and he was not having it with the Pope on many issues. And some article was even saying that there was a fetus found on the altar or something like that because he's like one
What?
of the leaders of the pro priest or something, pro life priest or whatever, and there was a fetus. I'm like, dude, that's nuts. Okay, that's no. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that for 1 second. I think it was just because he was bickering back and forth with the Pope and he was not having at it. He was not faltering and he had enough. And Bishop Strickland was removed from office, which is unfortunate because he is a huge leader in TLM and traditional Catholicism in general. But like again, like we've been saying, we don't believe that Pope Francis is the anti-pope. However, we do believe that Pope Francis is the most progressive pope in a very long time. And it is not just because of
Yeah.
him, it is because of his clergy and who all stands behind him. There is not one person to blame, and you really shouldn't be blaming anybody when it comes to being a Christian or a Catholic, because that is kind of sinful in general. However, you do have to take apart where some stuff is starting to become blasphemy in the Catholic Church's views. One thing I'll say about this, and then I will end it because this is such a ridiculous topic to really talk about and cover. Pope Francis, for whatever reason, loves to cover climate change. Stop,
Why?
bro. Just why? Just like why? Like again, you are the leader of the Catholic Church. You are not a
He's not a
you're
politician.
you're not a politician. And for
You're not a
those of you
politician.
keyboard warriors that are saying, well, technically he's the politician, he's the head of the church, so he's a politician. No, he's not. No, he's not. He's the Pope. He's the head of a religious order. He is not at all a politician, yet he feels the need, for whatever reason, to continue to talk about political views. Pope Francis, if you want for people to stay in the Catholic Church, please, please, please start respecting the Catholic Church and the traditional views of the Catholic Church instead of trying to make the church more edgy. Okay? Can you do
We're in
us all a
edgy
favor?
times. We don't need to be an edgy church
We
as
do
well.
not. If you want to go be in an edgy church, Joel Osteen's in Texas. Go over there. I heard they
Mega
have
church.
elephants for their, Christian mass. I mean, Christmas mass or service, whatever they call it. So, like I said, oop, my mic started popping. Okay.
You good?
Like I said, I do not believe that Pope Francis is the Antipope. There's a lot of stuff
No.
going on behind the scenes that it concerns me, and I feel like he should take into account that he is not a political figure. However, he is the head of a church that is losing many, many followers because of his progressive ways. And he is not the first progressive pope that we've had.
No,
If you want to
yeah.
go into it, all of Vatican II pretty much diminishes a ton of traditional Catholic views and everything. And that was like, what, in the 1960s? So
Late 60s, early 70s. Yeah.
yeah, so traditional Catholicism has been like under attack for a long time. However, I do not believe that, again, Pope Francis is the anti-pope. I feel like there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and he is more of a figurehead that is just taking the blows.
I agree.
So, for this Christmas, because it is Christmas, I know this has been a very long podcast, and I'm so sorry, but it was a lot to uncover, especially the fact that this is a double obligation, double day of obligation for the Catholic Church, and there's a lot to cover on the basis of Pope Francis that we needed to go into detail because, like I said, there is so many news outlets and websites and blogs and whatever, and I mean, I was seeing on like Instagram about how Catholic YouTubers are the problem of a lot of this
Yeah.
hate being spread.
Apparently, we're like a threat now to the country,
Yeah.
according
So
to the FBI.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently,
What?
according to the United States, Catholics are a threat to the country, and honestly, in the next like 3 months, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a headline where we are being in consideration for a terrorist organization. But that's the world we live in now. So
Right
we're gonna
time.
bring you something fun. We're gonna bring you our favorite segment, and we're going to end it there. So thank you all for watching. You guys have been like amazing on our social media. Is my mic sounding okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
You
sounding
sound
perfectly
good.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay, on my side, it doesn't sound as good. So honestly, I'll just take this off for right now. Thank you guys so much for watching all of our videos. I think last week, or as you're listening to this now, 2 weeks from this video or podcast being uploaded, we got 6,000 views on our YouTube alone, which is amazing, guys. Thank you so much
Thank
for
y'all.
watching our content and enjoying it. More and more, day by day, our audience is growing, and it just means the world to us. Although we are receiving negative comments from here and there, the one comment that is beautiful and rejoiceful and really like thanks us for what we're doing and telling us like how proud people are of what we were doing really means the world and makes up for a lot of the things that people say negatively about us. So thank you for putting your faith in us. And so Blake, did you go last time first?
I don't remember.
You can go ahead and actually go
Yeah. You,
first.
you can go last.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that sounds good. Oh, well, I guess I fixed my mic on my side. Sounds good.
So, to end out for my Saint Station on this Christmas, I am going to do Saint Augustine of Hippo. So the reason why I chose him is because I think just given the hard topics that we had to talk about today, um, and with people leaving the church and people not understanding our faith, this saint, in case you don't know who he is one of the major theologians of the church, doctors of the church, created a lot of doctrine that we have, and he was he was down a beaten path at one point, and he did convert, and I think his mother. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Saint Augustine's mother is Saint Monica.
I think I've heard that before.
Yes, Saint Monica is the mother of Saint Augustine, and Saint Monica always prayed to God for the conversion of Saint Augustine. And finally, he did convert, um, and accepted Christ into his life, and really just changed everything. Um, he was just an amazing addition to a wonderful group of saints that we have, endless saints that we have in our faith. Um, but yeah, Saint Augustine, really, really good one. Big theologian. So highly recommend some of the readings or writings that he has. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, so if you are looking on my webcam, Blake can't see it because I'm using it for the recording. I have a prayer card of Saint Monica, and in this prayer card is also Saint Augustine.
Yep.
And on the back it says, exemplary mother of the great Saint Augustine. So there you go. There's your confirmation, Blake. Right then
Thank
and
you.
there. Had to fact check you, but if I didn't fact check you, the keyboard warriors surely will.
You're right.
Um, so mine is, of course, a goofy one. Of course, I always pick something that has to do with what's going on in the world. And as Christmas Eve is here, we are going to have the sensation of Saint Nicholas. Crazy.
Wow, who would have thought?
But this is the real Saint Nicholas. This isn't Santa Claus, kids. This is who Santa Claus wishes he was. Okay? Saint Nicholas was a bishop from, geez Louise, the year 270 to the year 343. Nicholas promised to bring the gospel of Christ to the people and defend the faith for all those who would attack. Nicholas, the bishop of Myra, lived his life in faithful service to God. He was the protector of the poor, the helpless, the advocate of justice for those in need, and the faithful defender of the Christian faith. So much of a defender that he actually punched a heretic in the face for saying blasphemy. And I believe it correctly that heretic was a high-ranking political figure wherever they were living. So he did not care. He did not care who you were. St. Nicholas is the patron saint of sailors, merchants, archers, repentant thieves, children, brewers, and pawnbrokers and students.
Pawnbrokers?
Pawnbrokers. I don't even know what a pawnbroker is.
Like pawn shops, right?
Is
a
that
pawnbroker? Yeah. Let me see. Pawnbroker. What's a pawn? Yeah. A pawnbroker is an individual or business that offers secure loan. Yeah. Pawn shop.
He was born and died in Turkey. Nicholas was also known as Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is the real Saint Nicholas, who Santa Claus was named after. So kids, be thankful for both, because they're watching, and you better not hide, because they will find you. Don't be a heretic. Don't be a heretic, kids.
Don't be a heretic.
All right, so thank you for watching, and I know that this was a long episode. This is a podcast, however, so you never know how long this is going to last. I even saw a podcast that I was just listening to this past weekend that was like 3 hours long. I was like, I don't know if I could ever do a 3-hour podcast, but you never know what's going to happen, what kind of topics are going to come up. This was supposed to be a completely different topic today, but thank you for sticking with us to the very end. Like I said, we are not here to condemn anybody or disrespect anybody. We are just asking for you to respect our beliefs in a kindful manner. And if you have any questions or you have any concerns or statements that you want to make, please do. And I ask for you, please, 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 especially since it's Christmas, to be respectful in the comments. And I thank you for your time. Listen to us wherever you find your podcast, on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Our social medias are TikTok and Instagram, and we have a Twitter. A lot of great things coming in 2024. Blake and I have some really, really fun stuff and really, really fun topics that we want to discuss, and potential guests to come on to the podcast. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow along wherever you're listening to this podcast, and thank you guys so much. God bless.
Stay prayed up.
Stay prayed up.